Okay, so we already said how excited we are to be having the wonderful Fi chatting with us today. And I'm going to say it again because she's absolutely our go-to, our favorite when it comes to all things personal, professional branding, photography, anything visual, really. Fi, welcome.
Oh, that is the best intro. Thank you. Hi, I'm so happy to be here. And congrats on your podcast. I'm just so thrilled for you ladies that you're out there doing it. And thrilled to be one of your first guests.
Thank you. We agree with all of that. And we want to dive straight in today and talk about your wheelhouse, which really is this professional branding space. And Ness and I were having a conversation about it earlier and kind of going, well, yeah, like we all know, we've heard of it. We know what the words are, but do we really, as business owners, understand what that means and what we can kind of take on? Because just like we were talking about, launching a podcast can be quite overwhelming. So can thinking about our professional and personal brand. And actually, is it personal branding or is it professional branding? That's something I've always wondered. So if you could give us some insight into what does it actually mean and what do we need to be sort of thinking about here?
Yeah, great question to kick off with. Well, firstly, let's go with personal branding, but there's branding and personal branding is really when you are the face of your business. So it's more personality based, as opposed to if you were a large organization, you could just say it's your brand. And of course, everyone should have professional branding done. Slip that one in.
We'll talk about where to go shortly.
So the best way I explain branding to people is that everyone has a brand. So it's not should I or shouldn't I have a brand, or, how do I create my brand? It's like you have a brand, but are you actually focused on your brand? Have you done the work on your brand? Do you know how your brand is perceived by everyone out there? And that's really what your brand is. It's how people perceive you. So what's the feeling, what's the emotion, what's the vibe that your audience or anyone that comes into contact with you anywhere, whether it's your website, your social media, you're speaking at a presentation, or, it could be a flyer, your marketing, every touch point your business has is your brand speaking to someone. And if we're not clear on who that person is and what we want to say to them and what's going to resonate with them, then our brand or our marketing and our messaging cannot hit the mark. And we end up appealing to the wrong people, or appealing to too many people or no one at all. So branding is really, it's such a tricky subject because everyone knows I've got a brand. And I think often we sort of do a little bit of thinking around it, but a lot of people in business I come across, they haven't actually sat down to do the work, because as you ladies know, when we talk about this, there are so many things we need to do in business. There are always other priorities that I think people tend to put ahead of it, and it could be marketing. It could be your next freebie or funnel. It could be your next product. It could be client work. But we tend to, a lot of people tend not to prioritize branding, because I think it can be tricky for people to see the tangible link between branding and profitability and growth in business. I'm obviously a big advocate of that, and I see it with my clients, but I think that's why people sort of do a little bit thinking about it, and then they sort of park it to the side and focus on other things. And I'm actually in my second week of branding bootcamp, my signature course, which I launched last year to help people get brand clarity. And those first few weeks are around, discovering your purpose in business, working out or defining who your ideal client is, what your USP is, what your values are. And I think we all think in our heads we know that stuff, but it is really challenging when you actually sit down and have to define it. So that's why I love this work, because once people have that clarity, they tend to surge ahead in their business much quicker than they would if they hadn't done the work.
It just all interrelates, doesn't it? There's such a connection. And in my mind now, it's a no-brainer that if you are out there promoting your business, whether that be on social media or, however else you do that, it makes sense that you actually have a brand that people can recognize and connect to. Yeah. And that has to kind of come first. Otherwise, you're sort of throwing was it spaghetti at a wall or something like that,
Yeah,
mud at a wall, and hoping it will attract the right person. But if there's not clarity on who that right person is, it can really make it challenging in order to be able to bring those people towards you. So what would you say then, what's the mindset shift that people need to make in order to be able to prioritize brand?
Well, we all work mostly with women. So the biggest mindset shift is sharing yourself online, for sure. Yeah. I mean, some people are happy to come up with logos and brand colors and fonts, but as soon as you talk to them about, putting their own images out there, talking on video, increasing that visibility, the inner critic stuff pops up straight away. Obviously, imposter syndrome, all those things. So that mindset is around having the confidence and self-belief in what you want to do, why you're here on earth, like what's the purpose behind your business. And I suppose the way I educate people on that is that you need to focus on your clients. Take that focus off yourself, because as women, let's talk about women, we just think too much about, we just have that self-judgment piece, don't we, that immediately pops up and blocks everything before we get any further down the road. So, not comparing ourselves to others, not being so hard on ourselves, and just focusing on who we are here to help and what we can offer them in terms of value and helping solve their problems, I find is the best thing in terms of mindset. And just to add one other one really quickly is, you just have to get out there and do it.
Yeah,
I love that. So it's putting yourself in your brand. Don't hide behind a logo or brand colors. Like, get your face out there. And I have to say personally, because of course we worked with you and will continue to work with you forever. You're stuck with us. I am quite a confident, fairly extrovert person, but as you both know, I'm going to say hated, past tense, getting photos done. And our first photo shoot, my goodness, there were so many mindset shifts. It was like I had to step into courage for sure. It's different. A selfie, good angles, you control it, to actually getting a photo shoot. And I have had photo shoots before, but what I really loved about the process, Fi, of working together was just that nurturing and being there for me. And Ness, you were there for me because, as my biz bestie as well.
Yeah.
And then having the courage to step in front of the camera and maybe feel a little bit silly or uncomfortable. Like, it was so much fun. And when we focus, it's such a good lesson for all of us to remember. Focus on the purpose and why we're doing it. Focus on our clients. And let's just not take ourselves too seriously, because we do that so naturally from all the concern of comparisonitis and self-judgment and all of that fun stuff. So that's not really fun. Let's just have some fun and take ourselves lightly. I think that's really such an important message to take away from today, isn't it? Put you in your brand. Ness, what about you? Did you have a bit of a journey to feel more comfortable? And by the way, it's a work in progress for me. We'll see how we go in the next photo shoot. Still need that encouragement and maybe some champagne. But anyway, Ness.
Well, I think that what we did was we talked about, and Fi prompted us with this, who is your, who's your brand? But I kind of want to break it down a bit more than that. Like, if your brand was a personality, who would it be? What do you want your tribe, your people that you're wanting to attract? What do you want them to pick up about who you are from your photos? So for us, we actually we are serious about business, but we have fun in doing that. And we believe that, we create strong connections and relationships with our clients, and we love that aspect of our work. So we want to be seen to be approachable and friendly and fun, because that's how we work. And I think that being able to go in and then have you, Fi, be able to sort of coach us and guide us through that, because you knew what it was we wanted to get as an outcome.
Yeah.
It allowed the space for that to happen. And it's interesting because I think had that not happened, and Nikki, you were like, this was my fourth photo shoot with Fi, so I'm a little bit more relaxed about it now. But for Nick, if you had have been still uptight about it all, that would have been a complete mismatch and completely given us a different brand out there in the ether than as it did come about, because you were comfortable about it and thinking about, who do we want to attract? Let's make sure that they can see that in us.
Yeah. And your images show that vibe so well. And you did that work, obviously we talked about it pre-shoot, but you did that work to show up through the outfits, through the energy, through the props, everything. And that's what we talk about with visuals. And the irony of relaxing and having fun is that when you do that, you attract the people that are your people so much quicker.
Yes.
Because I think the biggest mistake we make with photo shoots is thinking that we have to be so polished and curated. And, the word elevated is said a lot in terms of imagery. And I still love those words, but I think they sometimes taken the wrong way. And yes, professional images and looking your best and looking sharp and dressing well, it all matters, but you have to then relax into it on the day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for anyone listening out there that is planning to get photos done, like if you do that work, find a photographer to do that work with before the shoot, you should be able to turn up on the day and have fun.
Yes.
Even better if you've got your biz bestie with you. You guys,
Yes.
that is an advantage. But yeah, find a photographer you click with and make sure you do that work with them ahead of. And then, the result is always so much better.
So how does that play out? Sorry, can I? How does that play out with businesses with teams? So when you have, because I know you do corporate work as well, just sort of businesses that want to come in and have their team as part of that. Yeah. As a business owner, how do you bring your team who might be really nervous about it on board to that experience as well? Because they're part of the brand, right?
Yeah. And look, I do photograph a lot of corporate teams as well. And I will say it is harder to get corporate teams on board because often it's the headshot. They have to get the headshot on the day. And no one likes having their headshot taken. Very few people. It's that one image. So it is harder, but I think again for businesses, I do ask some of those same questions around, well, what does your brand represent? Who's your target audience? Potentially what values, do you love? And I have some corporates that are quite fun come to me and, we still have fun shoots. And then I have others, like let's say law firms, for example, that still want to be in that more professional, polished, traditional space. But I am feeling more and more in corporates that, and I think this is as a result of COVID and lockdowns, that they are taking on a more relaxed approach now. They're leaning into that. And some of the law firms I photograph now, they're not all wearing ties. And if anything, they're leaning against ties because they know that that's going to make them look a little bit more relaxed. And often you don't have to sell them on lifestyle imagery anymore. They sort of understand how that can benefit. I do have to work with people a bit harder on the day because if you've got 10 or 15 people and there's definitely a few that aren't on board, it is harder as opposed to small business owners like yourself. They're so much more invested in the shoot. So there is that, but that's just one of those things we work through as a photographer and again, just try and make them feel as comfortable as possible on the day. Yeah.
And I feel like this is a really good opportunity to bring up ripped jeans, actually. So I have a question. And it's kind of like, what are the rules, I guess? And just a bit of backstory for those who are listening. In our photo shoot, check out our website, businesstogether.com.au, and you'll see our photos. And you'll see that I'm wearing ripped jeans. Now, having grown up in corporate, I like to say, there are a couple of rules around what we should wear or what the rules were. For example, singlets, showing your arms, I don't know if you gals experience the same thing, was a no-go. I mean, definitely no to ripped jeans. Coming out into this business, actually, which is not our first business, but starting business together, Ness and I sort of went, what is the feel of what we can wear day to day, even not thinking about it so much the photo shoot yet. And we sort of talked about that fun but professional. We know our staff. We're here to make a difference, but we're not that kind of stuffy corporate, that old school stuffy corporate. So, jeans and ripped jeans are okay. But as you know, I felt so uncomfortable when I saw those photos. And I think for you might have actually I asked to edit some of the rips out. Then I changed my mind, but by that time it was too late, which is fine. Because there was this whole process internally to go, hold up, is it okay? Is it okay to have ripped jeans? Is it not? Is it still unprofessional? The overthinking, talking about the mindset stuff. So what are the rules when it comes to our brand? Are there any? What are they?
Well, that's a really good question. No one's really asked me about rules. I mean, every time you ask yourself a question, it's, well, is this how I want people to see me online? So, and there's got to be authenticity in that as well. So if you love your ripped jeans, then wear your ripped jeans. I suppose you could change that is if you were someone who, maybe you're someone who loves death metal and you wear your death metal t-shirt, but you know that your target audience, that will repel them, or there's a risk of it repelling them. So I suppose if there's a risk of repelling your ideal client, you would change something up. But ripped jeans, that was fine. You look great in those ripped jeans.
Oh, thank you. They are my favorite and quite controversial. I'm sure we'll split the listeners in two parts here, ripped jeans or not, friends. Let us know.
On the overthinking thing as well, we overthink our images a lot and notice those details a lot more than other people. Like I was going to say you wouldn't believe, but you probably would believe some of the feedback I get from clients on their images. Like, I don't like my hair. That's like the first and most obvious one I get from a lot of women. Or, I don't like, I look fat in that because of the way the shirt is sitting, or I don't like I mean, I have had comments on every single thing. I say, take your shoes off, let's do something relaxed. Oh, but I haven't, my toenails are terrible. I'm like, we're not going to focus on your toenails.
I'm going to zoom in on that. Great branding.
We judge every little thing, but at the end of the day, someone's going to look at that image for a second and get a feeling as soon as they look at it. And that's what they're going to take away from it, not whether or not, your arms look great.
You've got a little roll happening.
Your hair's not as it normally looks. It's not a great hair.
That we definitely noticed that. So we looked at the photos and went, amazing. Amazing. And then the internal, like, oh, I don't like that. And I'm like, Ness, you look amazing, but all these things about me. Ness was doing the same thing. Yeah. Hope you don't mind me sharing.
No.
And then we went away and came back. And every time we looked at it, I can only speak for myself, I was a little bit less critical each time. There were still some photos that, I just was so hypercritical because that's how we are. Yeah. But it was a really interesting process, even that, which also links to this whole piece of visibility.
That's right.
The more we can practice. Yeah.
And I think that I remember that. And I'm pretty sure we got on the phone or on Zoom and we're looking at them together. And my daughter was in the background listening to us, on a phone or whatever. And she pulled me up and she said, aren't you all about positivity? Aren't you all about being confident women in business? Did you just hear yourselves?
Wow.
So then it was like, sorry, Mum.
And then
I think actually she really challenged us.
Yeah, my 13-year-old, she picks me up on things pretty quickly as well. I try and make a point of not mentioning, body issues, because we all have things we don't like about our body. But she pulls me up really quickly as well. Mum, you're beautiful. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I think our generation, we are trying to bring our kids up very differently, and things are slowly changing in terms of advertising and marketing. But and then, of course, they've got the other side, which is the TikTok and social media, which tells them the complete opposite still. Yeah. But I think our generation, we were brought up to really judge ourselves. And I've had brand shoots where, there's images I will just never use because no matter what anyone says about them, I don't like them. And one thing I say to my clients is you have to be proud of your images. And I did, I very, very, very rarely have to reshoot clients, but I had a shoot in the last few months that I ended up having to reshoot, and I thought her images were gorgeous, but she just did not love them. She didn't like her hair. There are a few things about the shoot that that didn't click with her. And I thought, well, I could push you and say, I think this gallery is a sensational result still, considering what you were dealing with on the day and, mindset and all sorts of stuff. But I want her to be proud of her images because I know that if you're not proud of your images, you're not going to use them. But we have to find that middle ground as women, particularly, to not overthink and overjudge. And that's, again, where your biz bestie or, if it's not someone you work with, someone in your inner circle, just show them your images and see what they say.
Or your teenage daughter.
Who
just says, come on. And so I think we did challenge ourselves to go, okay, now we have to look at it through the lens of what do we like. But you raised a really good point. We're talking about branding. We're talking about how we put our images, who we are out into the world. I think there does need to be a level of comfort in that. that you're proud of it. Like we were super proud of our photo shoot. We just plastered it everywhere. So it felt good to share that. Like I don't look and cringe. Whereas we started business in COVID, so we weren't in see each other for the first 12, 14 months or something.
18, I think.
It was 18 months.
Yeah.
And so we were relying on one photo from my old stock images and one from Nikki, and it was black and white.
Right.
It was washed together. My God, were we sick of that after 18 months until we got the photo shoot done. So I think it really is about it's funny because it uncovers that inner self-critic and it uncovers those mindset blocks that we have because it's so in your face.
And it's a real opportunity to sit into that and think about that and what's that saying and what proof is there that even what I'm thinking is correct. And actually, it's a really good time to bring up, the word authenticity as well. And I know that's bandied about a lot, but we do need to be authentic. And one of the things I also say to my clients when they're worried about their images is that people don't want to see you looking perfect.
Yeah, you said that to me. That stuck with me so much. Keep going. Yes, sorry for me.
Yeah, because I'm sure we've all been in that moment where we're scrolling online and we see someone looking size 6 and looking amazing, and you just like want to shit on it because you're in that. Just let's be honest here. We've all had those moments, and then immediately you go, "What am I saying? What am I thinking?" And in the earlier days, I used to compare myself a lot to other people online. And, there's we can fall into that trap of thinking we have to look a certain way to be successful as well, which is absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
No one wants to see us perfect. They just want to see you being real. And the more real and authentic your images are, even your professional, and then mix them up with those, selfies that you take yourself, you will get a better response to your images if you're perfectly imperfect.
That was so impactful when you shared that, and that stuck with me. So that's a really big message, I think, for everybody to take. We are perfectly imperfect, and if we all reflect, I know for me, and I'm sure for you ladies, if I reflect on my business career, it was the moments that I was actually more real or more vulnerable or not trying to be perfect that opportunities came or breakthroughs happened, because we're kind of taking off that mask. And it's more relatable. So powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to run off and add that into my pre-session guide.
Yeah, you go, girl. I love it.
For sure. And I also think that there's something in this piece around the fear of being visible. So do you think that perhaps it's a self-sabotage, but it's also a level of comfort where we start to critique ourselves to the point where we talk ourselves out of being visible? So I don't like the sound of my voice, or I don't like the way I show up on camera, or I don't have a great background, like all these excuses that we throw out there to keep ourselves safe. Absolutely. And when it comes to branding, we've got to step into a place that, and I love what you said earlier around, we've got to make it about our clients or our customers and turn it around away from that view on ourselves, because that's what's going to stop us from being able to show up just anywhere visually, whether it be through photos or video or on social media or even reaching out to people.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Fi?
Brené Brown, can I just quote her because she's fantastic. She's I can't remember the exact word for word quote, but she basically says you just have to get comfortable with discomfort.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the easier it gets. And I know that once you start showing up, because this happened to me in my business when I started showing up more a few years ago. Yes, it's hard, but it won't take long for you to see that showing up is helping other people. Because once you start getting, we always say to ourselves, once I get confident, then I'll show up. But you will not get confident until you start to show up, because that's where you will build your confidence. So it's just about taking that action. And I think that's why it helps in small business to understand your purpose and to focus on that, because if your purpose is greater than your inner critic, you're going to push through. And that's what gets me through all the things I have hated doing. And even though I coach women around visibility and showing up, I do that because I've had all those same issues myself, and sometimes still do. We all have, new level, new devil.
Yeah. Or even new level, same devil.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. And I think that, I really love what you've said there around you need to take the action before the courage shows up. So you've had this experience even for yourself, which is probably why you can really relate to what your clients are going through. We love to finish up with asking one question, which is all about what is one action that's going to help our listeners break that cycle of not wanting to show up and be visible. But something that practical that they can do in order to get them moving beyond that?
Really good question. I know we talked about a lot of roadblocks in terms of inner critic stuff that comes up, but I think the other thing that stops people is when they're ready to show up, they suddenly then don't know what they want to say. So let's say, for example, if there's something really practical I would say to do, if you're on Instagram, stories are a great place to start showing up because they're brief and they only last for 24 hours. So it's a great training ground for visibility, not only in pictures, but in speaking to camera and to your audience. So I would say just set yourself a challenge of 5 days in a row, Monday to Friday, turning up on stories and saying something to your audience, but don't do it without sitting down and writing about just some dot points, what you're going to say each day. So the first day could be, this is who I am and this is what I do. The second day could be, this is my home office. The third day could be, this was a client I worked with recently and something they were struggling with. Are you struggling with the same? So just really simple things. Again, make it about your audience, not about you. Or you could share something personal to do with your day. This is my favorite cafe that sells awesome coffee. But that I find is a really easy place to start.
That's fabulous advice and something really practical that our listeners can do. So thank you so much, Fi, for joining us today. I've loved our chat. I love that you have such a depth of experience in this area and particularly helping women. So if anybody wanted to find you to get their photo shoot done or to join your beautiful Thrive community, what's the best way to get in contact?
So I am Fi Mims Photography online. My surname is Mims, not 2 M's, but you'll find me on there on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm Fi Mims. Come and find me in all the places. I probably hang out most on Instagram like many photographers. I love my job. I'm so grateful that I get to get up every day and work with women like you and others that are so awesome. And I get to do something really fun as well and help you guys out in your business. I love it. Thanks for having me today.
Well, we're grateful too.
It's so good. I would love to just also throw out one final thought, if that's okay. If that's okay, asking permission. Why do we do that? Anyway, that's another podcast episode. I just also want to say thank you, Fi, for all of your insights. And to all the listeners, remember, this isn't set and forget. So as you evolve and your business evolves, this isn't just that you do it once and then that's it. Whether it's your personal branding, professional photography, your branding, you're revisiting your ideal client. So if you are listening and you're like, that was really great, but I've been in business for a while and I already did that, then the question is, well, how long ago does it still reflect the brand that you're wanting to portray today, the message? And, it's got to fit in with those, again, ideal clients that you want today, perhaps not when you first started business. That's me.
I couldn't have wrapped that up better myself. That is awesome. Great point to finish on. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thanks everyone for listening and we'll see you next time. Bye.
See you later.